All right, welcome back to the MMA Creators Podcast, episode number 69. Now, it's been a bit of a weird week in terms of the content creation world and mixed martial arts, namely because we haven't had a pay-per-view or a fight night, which means there's been a bit of a power vacuum in the combat sports world, filled by Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois, which was last night. And we could get stuck into that, if something you want to touch on, because I have to say, as main events go, and when I'm a boxing casual, you know, for the most part, but that was pretty exhilarating. What were your 2 cents on that one?
Yeah, we'll get stuck into a few of them because there was no UFC, but sometimes that's a good thing because it highlights different organizations, at least for more of an MMA centric fan. So Cage Warriors was on last night. Obviously, we had Bellator recently as well. We had the boxing this evening. So I think just for myself personally, I'm definitely evolving more to a combat sports fan where I go and watch different promotions now more so than I ever have done before, which I am enjoying. And in regards to boxing, when it's heavyweight boxing at the very highest level, I always watch. And of course, Wembley with 94,000.
I thought it was 98, no?
Was it 90? No,
I think it might have been.
No way, 94.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. I'm checking it now. I feel like I have to.
I'm sure it was 94. Regardless, 94, 98, it was ridiculous. The atmosphere
96, this one's saying, so I guess we'll be in the middle.
Difference. The atmosphere was ridiculous. And then when you look at what was actually on the line with the fights, Daniel Dubois is young. I think he's 27 years of age. And then you've got AJ, who's one of the biggest superstars in the game, coming off a ridiculous amount of momentum on home soil. And Daniel Dubois just didn't care for that. He didn't care for the skill set. He didn't care for the power. He didn't care what Anthony Joshua had to say that night. He just said, no, not today. Took the center, backed him up with a jab, was aggressive, defensively sound, put his combinations together when he needed to, just got him on the ropes from early, landed a heavy shot in the first after AJ overextended, and then Daniel Dubois comes back and clips him with a long right hand. And ever since that moment, he was on autopilot, AJ. And it wasn't an autopilot which was going to be able to compute with the absolute machine that was Daniel Dubois that evening, because he was just militant in his approach. Didn't give him any space to come on the front foot, just backed him up. And then once he got hurt, his shots became predictable. They became very easy to see. And Daniel was just too sharp and too powerful and too resilient. So, yeah, that was super impressive.
Yeah, completely agree. I think there's something to be said. I was actually having a debate with my dad about this today, talking about boxing. And obviously the sort of last couple of years, there's been a bit of a resurgence in that realm. I think, but you know, the one problem with boxing we've always seen is the lack of fights at the top level, the ones we actually want to see being made. And obviously since Saudi Arabia and this whole Riyadh season
up the Turkey
thing, listen, yeah, we can sit here and debate numerous political problems with that and all the things. But the bottom line is, as combat sports fans, we're getting the fights we want to see. And maybe that's a bit of a shallow opinion to have, but we're talking about combat sports here. And at the end of the day, last couple of years, we've had some incredible fights in the boxing realm, which we probably wouldn't have had otherwise. And now it seems, you know, they're getting their clutches on the UFC. Because, of course, we just saw with the Sphere card, which is it sponsored, I suppose, by Riyadh Season and His Excellency, as we talked about the other week with that horrendous jab that he pulls out every time he's on camera.
The geezers just come out and made the craziest fights, the craziest events. Every week is Riyadh Season. I said on one of the posts, it's like the DFS sale, and there was one British human who laughed because they understood the context of that. It's every weekend, non-stop season. I love it. I'm a big fan. And everything that he's done for that sport has got me massively invested now, way more so than I ever have been before. Then you have characters in there like Eddie Hearn that just entice me. And there's a lot of narratives, there's a lot of story, and there's a lot of talent. And one thing that is apparent without rhyming there is the fact that the boxing is, of course, at the highest level. And it's so fun to watch. And you start looking at it and you start thinking, the way that some of these fighters move with their boxing, and whilst they're in the pocket, there's a lot of similar pivots, there's a lot of similar frames that they're using in things that you'll see in wrestling, in MMA, in Muay Thai with the clinches. So I'm also looking at that thinking, where are people evolving as mixed martial artists? How are they using boxing in close in the pocket with different angles? So it's definitely fun to watch it from an educational perspective as well. I'm rambling, but I enjoyed it.
No, I also, there's something to be said actually more recently, going the opposite direction, because now we've got Dana White dipping his toes into boxing with Callum Walsh, and that whole event signed. I mean, it was under UFC Fight Pass, and it had that sort of classic UFC presentation and UI. It was almost a bit of a weird thing to watch, because it's just such a contrast. But, you know, we've got quite literally what was at a time a rival sport in a lot of ways. You know, boxing for a long time, and its fans looked to put down MMA and by extension the UFC until it really grew into the powerhouse we know today. And now it seems, I feel like we're at that sort of dynamic where they're blending together, and the crossover seems to be a bit more apparent. Obviously, Ngannou most recently is another example. But I think at the bottom line, it's only really a good thing for the sport. I mean, I'm excited. I don't really know what Dana White's going to do next. Obviously, I know there's a lot of criticism to be had. Me might not necessarily agree, but Power Slap obviously drew a lot of criticism, and I'm sure some people have something to say about Dana, you know, manning the boxing realm. But what can I say? For me, it's only a positive.
One thing with that, I'm glad you brought that up, because there's meant to be a big statement coming out soon, how Dana's entering boxing on a more serious conversation. And I'm really interested to see how that's going to be, because the one thing that boxing do not have is that umbrella brand that people fight within, and you have that company structure like a UFC. They always say boxing's the biggest going out of sale party, because there's nothing left of it at the end of the day. There's no Premier League, there's no UFC, there's no NBA. And it's very, very unique in that sense. So I definitely see a world in where Dana's going to go back to his original passion. Let's not forget that's where he started.
That's true. Very true.
His boxing. Back to when Mayweather was unknown. Back to when he was valeting
teaching boxercise classes
in Vegas, exactly, with the Fertitta brothers, right? Going way back to those days. So he's always had that passion there. There's definitely a market to corner with that approach and with that style. And if you're going to be able to start running it like the UFC, when you look at it from a payment perspective, I think a lot of those fighters, if it's ran similar to the UFC, will start actually earning more at the lower end of boxing. At the top end, I don't know if they're going to be able to be paying 50, 60, 70 mils. I just don't know if that would be that drastic. I can't see it. But on the lower end, I think you're going to get fighters that would be usually getting 1,000, 2,000, start getting 10, you know, similar to the UFC in the entrance. So I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything else you wanted to... I know, well, no, we were going to talk about the... Oh, no, ignore me. Sorry, my brain's just turned into scrambled eggs there. My apologies. Yes, actually, that's what I was going to talk about. Random segue. There's no smoothness to this one at all, but I just mentioned before we pressed record, I was getting a bit annoyed and I was almost laughing about it. And for good reason, because the other day I was sort of joking, or I was talking to somebody, and I wish I remembered who, about jiu-jitsu, obviously, and skin infections. And I was like, oh yeah, I haven't had one of those in a little while. Lo and behold, yesterday, I wake up ready to go to training. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm like, what? Why is the back of my leg itching? And bang, there is just a fat bit of ringworm on the back of my leg.
Ringworm?
Yeah.
Oh,
not that bad, to be fair, not that bad. And for those who don't know, it's not actually anything to do with a worm. And I really don't understand why it's called that.
I don't know. I don't know about that, actually. I would have to interject. It's way more terrifying than a worm.
Okay, now you're scaring me.
Worms are generous image to liken it to, because that's relatively futile. The image of ringworm is disturbing. And the first ever time that I saw a doctor where I had it and I said, what is this? And they said, it's this, but just don't Google it. Obviously, I went home and Googled it. And the reason I had it is because it hatched in my skin from 4 weeks prior when I was in Fiji on one of the small islands just out there where it's quite rife with the trip that I was on. So it's terrifying, is my point, but it's itchy as anything.
Yeah. Well, now you're making it sound a lot worse than I thought it was. You're kind of freaking me out.
No, it's sweet. I mean, it's nothing crazy. It's just
it's been a bit disheartening because, I mean, there's something to be said about it, though, like on a slightly more serious note, not physical health wise, but on a mental front. Because for me, I always say jiu-jitsu's it's a nice change of pace for me. It's a haven. It's a place for me to sort of just check out mentally and focus on something, even if it's just for an hour or two. My brain is only focused on that one thing. And for me, like, intense exercise is really the only place I can actually get that. So not being able to do that for even if it's just a week, maybe two, is kind of disheartening. And I wish I didn't find out on the day, but it sucks. And I'm in a way, though, I am grateful it is just that, because I've had worse. And I'm grateful it's just a little bit on my leg, because if it was, a staff or something or anything far worse, can be really bad. So not the end of the world, but
that's just where I thought you were going to go with that originally. But two quick questions off the back of that. The first question: when you're doing jiu-jitsu, it's different for different people what their outlet is in regards to intense exercise to get a hard push, heart rate up, whatever that may look like. Do you find that your work brain is seeping over into your rounds now, or still no?
The thing is, when I say intense exercise, I take that if for me specifically, I'm thinking more on the mental side of things. Like, it's actually a mental exercise, because I've always said a million times, jiu-jitsu is literally like human chess. So my brain is constantly thinking. I wouldn't necessarily, it comes from the aspects I take from when I'm working. It's more so.
You've misunderstood maybe how I mean that. I mean more maybe. Are you thinking of work? Are you thinking of what you have to edit, what you need to do with a thumbnail?
Absolutely not. No.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that's my point. Because usually anywhere else, if I'm working or not working, that's all I'm thinking about.
The reason I say that is because I usually get that with workouts, whatever that is. And one of my favorite ones to do, which is one of the hardest sweats you can get consistently, is tennis. If you play competitive tennis with someone that's of a decent standard and a competitive standard, if you play a few sets, it's just constant shuttle runs, right? So it's just constant shuttle sprints around the court, just zips, 6 meters, 7 meters, 5 meters, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, like on different parts of the rally. Then obviously with the exertion of the shot. So I always find that super enjoyable one, but a very intense push. It used to always be the time that I could dial in and just be very much in that present moment.
But did it seep through then?
Now it started seeping through. Now it started seeping through. So when I've started doing workouts as well, that used to be a time that usually in between sets I was always thinking of whatnot. But now
as soon as you stop, you're like, fuck.
Now it's going
post out.
Inset. It's going inset, and I just wanted to hear if
I think you got to. It's like chasing that high. That's what it is. It's like the same with adrenaline, right? Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'd say just get. Right. I know you did a bit of Muay Thai, but I'd say probably just get maybe back into that in some capacity or something a bit more intense. I feel like there's something innate with martial arts specifically as a form of exercise.
Yeah, definitely. I'll get
it just on a different level.
Muay Thai in for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak just personally about those benefits. Obviously, they're massive physically, and I always said that mentally was always the priority, and I stand by that. And I'm definitely feeling the improvements. I think it's also the thinking about the improvements and what you can do to improve. And it's, as I said, it's like a puzzle. It's like deciphering every new spar or technique. It's like a little puzzle that you've got to try and figure out. And I think that's just what makes it occupy your brain so much. If anything, I'd even say it's kind of gone the other way, where now, even when I'm out of jiu-jitsu, I'm actually thinking about it a lot more, and it's taking up more of my thinking time than just work, which I suppose is quite a good thing. But yeah, it does suck to be out of it. I have to say that it makes you never realize what you have until you're not doing it. I don't want to say you take it for granted, right? But
for sure
it does suck. Not exercising is just a negative. Yeah, actually, there was a clip. Sorry, I'm just rambling. There was an old Joe Rogan clip I saw the other day. He had someone on. I don't know exactly what she did because it was just a clip from it, but they were talking about how exercise is almost like some of the best form of mental not curing, but medicine. Let's say mental medicine, because instead of ruminating and thinking about your problems all the time, that can actually be the cause of the problem for whatever you're struggling with mentally. It's thinking about it all the time and ruminating. So the alternative to that is going and doing exercise is one of the few ways to actually just sweep that out of your mind. And that's something I can just attest to. Yeah, sorry, ramble.
No, you're good. You're good, because that's one thing that I'm realizing as well. We talk about the workflow, we talk about the strategy of content and whatnot in regards to our work. That's one thing that I've tried to improve, is those micro elements, is the sleep, is the organization, is the writing the to-do lists on the weekend ready for the week, getting the content ready for the week, different things like this, just to be more organized and more set up. It starts with, at the most part, just getting that regular exercise. It starts with just getting that consistent sleep, consistent protein, just consistent, good, healthy habits with small wins, small energy exertions with big wins over time, compounding big wins, consistent amount of sleep, like I say, consistent amount of nutrition, hydration, balance, and just add them on together. Yeah. And then because we obviously cover athletic sport, professional sport, but to be a professional at anything, but we can obviously liken it to what we do, is you have to train it as such. You have to eat correctly, you have to recover correctly, you have to sprint when you need to sprint, and then jog when you need to jog, and know how to sort of push and pull with that element of the game. So
actually, just speaking on that, like I was just today looking at UFC clips and whatnot, you know how it is. And I was just watching some of the exchanges from Cody Garbrandt versus Dominic Cruz. And it's just like the way they move in some of those scrambles, the speed of these guys. There was a moment where Cruz shoots for a double leg and Cody sort of flips over he grabs the guillotine and flips over him in the scramble. And it's just like the athleticism to do that. I can't even like see myself with that speed or mobility at all when I train. And it just shows you the levels these guys are at, which is just leading back to the Joshua fight. I think it gets me so frustrated, you know, as combat sports fans. I think overall, they're probably not the most intelligent group of people. So it does get frustrating when you see a lot of these people just rambling and insulting and ranting about Joshua being a bum or not elite level, it rubs me up the wrong way. And I know that's nothing new.
Why? Why would that rub you up the wrong way?
But it doesn't rub me up the wrong. I guess I don't know if it does or doesn't, but it's just frustrating to see because I feel like people just don't show enough respect to these guys who put like I don't because people don't realize the amount of effort that goes into these camps, and you know this is decades and decades of training and experience completely undermined by a bunch of clowns online. And I know this is I'm harboring on about something that's nothing new,
100%.
but it's still frustrating. Do you know what I mean?
No, not at all.
I don't know.
Because you realise, I can't remember for the life of me what the man's name is, and there's a study around this exact thing. But it's essentially the concept of being too many degrees of separation away from something to appreciate something. We've spoke about this before. So when the average person who maybe has played a couple of Sunday league games in his 20s or 30s goes to the pub and then they go to the Arsenal game and they shout instructions and what they should have done or could have done or how they should have done it, or they act a certain way, they're too many degrees away to truly understand the nuance and the detail to what they're doing and why these things are happening. Way too many away. So often, for the most part, that's always the case. So if you train in the sport or you research the sport or you speak to these people very often and you get to look into the mind or the details from different angles and viewpoints, and dependent on how determined you are in doing that, you can get closer to see what comes with that, and then typically you get people who are more respectful. But when you're at the meta level, the capturing of all of the mass fan base, you don't get that for the most part, so it should never annoy you.
Yeah, That's a pretty fair point. Also,
do you see what I mean by that?
Yeah, no. I got you. Again, this is not something I'm hugely hung up on. It's just one of those things that just frustrates you if you're just in passing moment.
We're getting philosophical
on Twitter.
Today.
Yeah, we are. We're even like the Greeks right now. There was actually something I was going to bring up. This is more on the content creation front because obviously
like love the Greeks.
Because as much as we are an MMA podcast, we also are a creator one too. And I don't know if you've seen this, but YouTube have just announced an absolute array of new features that I haven't really gotten stuck into. Actually, really interesting stuff. So, first of which, this is the one that I'll read out some of the ones that really just stuck out to me. A lot of them to do with AI. This one's interesting actually because it kind of either will or will not mess with my shit. You know, lack of a better term. They've announced a new feature, an auto dubbing feature, and I think you can see where I'm going with this. So essentially, what they're doing is you can add dubbed audio tracks to individual videos, and I don't know 100% whether that's through
languages.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know whether that's through AI or how exactly that works. I'm not entirely sure.
My opinion on that.
Shoot.
Because I know where you're going with that.
Yeah.
Because for context, you have other channels in other languages.
Yes.
I definitely think there'll be some crossover where sometimes people will consume Spanish from the main page for sure. But I don't know if it's going to change the landscape too much of having individual channels where people go for just that language with different voiceovers, which are native speakers, which are having very selective processes of who you are using and how it sounds and the branding. Obviously that will get better over time, but at least for now that's not a concern, I don't believe personally, but interesting nevertheless, for sure.
This one's going to really interest you. Actually, there's a couple here. This one in particular was the one that stuck out to me. So there is a new, like genuinely new proper feature with YouTube. So we have the subscribe button, we have the like button, but now there is a new thing called hype. It's just called hype. I don't know if there's a hype button, but essentially they've sort of framed it as an extension of the like button. So if you really love a video, you can hype it on top of a like button, and it adds a video on a leaderboard and helps spotlight creators with less views or less subscribers or smaller channels essentially. Okay. I'm not exactly sure how it works in terms of costs or anything like that. Are you aware on Twitch? You know, you use Twitch?
I'm not on Twitch.
I'm not on it particularly, but do you know what bits are?
I could guess.
Yeah, similar sort of thing, essentially.
Coins.
I'm kind of speaking to the listeners here as well. But yeah. So they're sort of working a way to cheering on the streamer, etc.
Sure.
So I think it's something along those lines. So that's quite exciting. And also they're starting to roll out the YouTube Shop feature. That's something I know you'd probably be very interested in.
Quickly?
Shoot.
If you look at all of these platforms, they are essentially just looking at what TikTok's doing.
Yeah,
they're rolling out the same. They're rolling out the same features.
That was my thoughts
because they're so innovative. And the thing that TikTok do, I was thinking it as of this week because I've started integrating more within it. Hence why I just had one of the creatine gummies from one of the sponsors on the shop is the integration with shopping, the way that they're able to leverage commission for the publisher and the way that they're able to leverage back-end commission and do it all into platform is insane.
It's pretty impressive.
It's just insane. Like so impressive. And that's just going to continue to grow and snowball. So Instagram and YouTube have all been looking at that and just been thinking, we need a way to seamlessly integrate shopping features. Because
just to prove your point
today, and it's
even
difficult.
more.
Sorry, go on.
No, I cut you off there, but just to prove your point even more, I scroll down. The next feature they just so happen to be rolling out is gifts on Shorts live streams. So there you go. That only proves your point furthermore, but still exciting. I'm particularly actually interested in that hype button because you know there's always a new way of leveraging the call to action, right? Asking for people to like and subscribe, right? There's always been a thing, but people have changed the way they approach that. And there's been a lot, there was that format on YouTube where a lot of people were saying, oh, only a small percentage of you are actually subscribed to the channel. That became for a time one of the most effective ways to get people to press the subscribe button. So now with this new hype button, I'm sure people are going to be doing the same things. And I know it's probably not that interesting to a lot of people, but there's so much nuance in that. If I could get ahead on that, that's something I'm already going to be trying to do. And as soon as that feature gets rolled out, I'm going to be trying to get ahead on that and
I think with any of these features, for anyone listening, including ourselves, whenever a platform puts out a new feature, it's basically asking you to use it. And if you do use it, it will help you out. A lot of people have this misconception that when you use new features, it will damage your videos for whatever reason. It doesn't make any sense. The new feature on the platform wants as much exposure as it can get, and therefore the platform is incentivized to help promote your work using it. So if it be a new segment to use with comments, or whether it be a new reaction like this is, they want you to use these features, or at least try to get people to use them. So I think that's something that the answers are all there, aren't they? We have the answers. We understand the content. But you just need to do it. That's the thing that I'm realizing. That's what I've been on at me and you this week with the podcast.
Yes.
And what I'm talking about,
some really good numbers with that, as just as I say. Yeah.
This is because what I'm realizing with the podcast, as well as I'm realizing with my clothing, as well as I'm realizing with Casuals Corner collectively, everything is there. Everything is on the table to pick up and create everything I want to do and want to achieve. I just have to create the content and tell the story. In regards to our podcast, we have loads of episodes with cool guests and good conversations. It's just a case of distributing it and getting it across Instagram and collaborating with it, and then headlining it and captioning it properly and getting it cross-platform. The same with the clothing. It's the same with all these elements. The stories are there. I've got the content. I've got the hard drives. It's just about actually getting it out there. And with the podcast, it was the same. People have started viewing them now. Like those videos are very well viewed that I've put on my Instagram, and so they should be. They're good.
I just wish there was a better way. Just speaking on that with the collaboration feature on Instagram, I wish there was a way to really translate that into followship on the other account. Do you know what I'm saying? I wish that I don't know how we go about doing that. I guess it doesn't matter. Yeah. No.
It doesn't matter. The thing that I was thinking when you were talking about like and subscribe in YouTube, and I think this is where things have trended to more so, and I think it's good, is it doesn't matter if people follow the account or don't follow the account or whatnot. The only important thing is people are seeing it and people are sharing it, and it's just getting that brand recognition, it's getting that establishment, it's laying the foundations with the logo to the different platforms, to the colors. It's just getting touch points. So it doesn't matter about followers. And the reason I say that link to the YouTube is because I think now another reason why people don't say, oh, like and subscribe, is because a lot of those things are largely irrelevant now, where a lot of it is more based around if you make the good content and if people want to watch your stuff, you will be seen. And it's more a case of prioritizing that, if it makes sense. So
I think why not both though, you know? I think if you have the time, like for me particularly within my video that I'm working on right now, you know, I said a couple of weeks ago I was going to spend 2 weeks making a video and really take my time with it. And I am currently in the process of the Ilya Taporia documentary, about halfway through now. And, you know, that extra time, and obviously it's a bit of a longer video, but it's given me a little more time to just focus on the little things.
Yeah.
Just little intricacies within the edit, etc., and stuff like that, and the script. I just really took my time with it, and it's coming along pretty nicely. Pretty nicely. It's the worst thing about it though, just as a quick ramble, is just not being able to use broadcast footage. It's like they are so strict with it. I know we spoke. No, but I mean like no. I know that. Obviously, I'm not saying I want to use a whole full fight, but we're talking. I'm getting some of my videos are getting copyright claimed, and I have to trim out. We're talking 1 second. It's like that is fair use, using a second of it, even if it's just. It's just it's so annoying. I don't know. They don't even give you an inch. They really don't.
Saying that, and it's something that I will actually bring up because I saw James Lynch make a video on it, and I saw other people complaining about it in regards to fair rights footage, right? And people just stealing other people's content and not giving them claims and things like that. And for the most part, with what I do, I've always just framed it in my head as I'm just running this from my bedroom and I'm just, just posting things and it's little old me. And I think that was okay for a minute to sort of in certain behaviors to get away with. And then I think there was a disconnect between what I was saying I wanted to achieve with the brand, then how I was behaving and whatnot. And one of those things was being religious in tagging everyone in everything that I use. And it's definitely something this week that I've stepped up even more. So anytime I use a photo for a tweet, anytime that I use a video for anything, just trying to get the people that created it, made it, just tagged in it. And I personally, I've been victim to people using the content and it going viral and going everywhere and getting no credit. So it's like, I don't sweat it, but I understand the importance in it, and also the importance
it's very contextual as well. Yeah,
no, I don't think it is.
You don't think so?
No, not really for the most part.
I mean, I don't know exactly on rules in terms of if you're using like 3 seconds. I'm talking in terms of like copyrights. I'm speaking more specifically with the UFC, right?
Yeah, with your work and the videos and whatnot. Can't really speak to that as much, but I mean more so in what I do. If I, for whatever reason, use someone's interview or a photo taken or whatever else. So it's definitely a good point to bring up. But talking about the UFC, jumping back into some fight stuff, we do actually have a fun card coming up this weekend. So let's get into a few of those, because recently on the MMA scene, I would say Paris, or France, I should say, has emerged as one of the hotbeds of the sport right now. And the talent, first and foremost, the energy that these guys bring to the table has been insane. So I'm always looking forward to these cards, especially with the times being more reasonable. But what jumps out to you on that card?
Well, I think the first thing to say is it's pretty much a given that any card in Europe is going to bring it. They're going to bring the energy, because it's not a common occurrence for us by any means. You know, you Americans listening, they have it easy. Events every week, and for actually reasonable prices. We don't get that. So when an event does come round, you know, the fans, they make sure it is worth every penny, and for good reason. I mean, the last 2 Paris cards have been pretty electric. I think back to Tuivasa versus Garn, probably most infamously. One of the loudest crowds I think you could ever hear. I think it definitely rivals some of the London ones too. You know, pretty impressive stuff. And I know Garn isn't on the card, but I do expect something along those lines. And when you have a main event like Benoit Saint-Denis versus Renato Moicano, if we're talking about stylistically, that is a barn burner. And there's only one way I see it, and that's someone getting knocked out and maybe submitted. It's going to be a finish. I don't see how it goes to a decision. I think part of the reason that is on top of their fight styles is, as I said, the crowd, they are going to feed into that energy, that sort of bloodthirsty energy, and it's going to make these guys want to really jump at each other and look for a finish. And they both are just intrinsically like that anyway. So for me, that's a given, and I think the man to do it is the one on home soil, the Frenchman himself, Benoit. I think he's going to come with a little bit of return to form. I know there was a lot of questions when he fought Dustin Poirier around his camp. I think he was dealing with a staph infection, just as we started to speak about it. So hopefully we see him really full health, fully fit, ready. And I think Moicano, as entertaining as he is, inside and out of the cage, I think he's going to be biting off a little bit more than he can chew with this one. I think Saint-Denis probably going to finish him.
Yeah, I am leaning a similar way at the moment. Moicano, whenever he fights, he's always someone that you can't count out at any point, because he has the ability to get himself back into a fight, get the finish, and then get a hot mic and start making bold claims. And that's what I love about him. He can struggle in fights, especially at the start. And we saw even in the one of the most impressive wins recently against Jalen Turner when he was almost finished. I can just see a world in where Benoit Saint-Denis, comes out. That's a mouthful. And he just bullies his way into the fight. I think he takes the center of the octagon, and I think he lets his striking go. I don't think Moicano is a bad striker by any means, but I just think when he's backing up, I don't think he's going to be very effective. I think he's going to be able to just be out-muscled, out-horsepowered a little bit by Benoit Saint-Denis.
Yeah, that's size difference.
I think he's just going to let his kicks go. You know, I think he's going to let his kicks go, big power back leg kicks to the right hand. I think he's going to look to sort of break the arms of Moicano, make it hard for him to straight right, make it hard for him to grapple. And then it's going to be hard to submit him. I don't think is off the table, but I can see a world in where he has a body triangle, goes to full back mount, and then he's just landing shots and gets the stoppage within 2 for Benoit Saint Denis. That's where I see that one.
Yeah, I'm pretty much exactly with you there. And the co-main event, this one is one I really can't decide. Nassourdine Imavov versus Brendan Allen. Both guys really... This is a title eliminator right here. Whoever wins this fight is pretty much all but set to fight for the belt. I know the middleweight actual title picture, as I say that, is pretty crowded right now. So maybe not, because you've got Chimaev hunting in there, Whitaker as well. So as I say that, I might be eating my words, because that top 5 is just a shark tank. Truly it is. So I'm not really sure. But either way, as a matchup goes, it's pretty exciting. Brendan Allen, of course, had a really impressive performance over... Who was it he just fought? Chris Curtis for the rematch, right? That was a pretty close fight, but it was a damn good one. And then obviously Imavov he also fought Curtis, if I'm not mistaken. I'm really testing my knowledge here. But, you know, they've both sort of all inherently been around in that middleweight picture. And now they're finally making that sort of surge right to the top. And this is going to be a test for both guys to see who's really belongs at that elite level. Because I feel like these two names just been outside of that top 5, you know, obviously on a ranking wise. But I mean, fighting ability too, if you take that into account. You look at these names at the top, you feel like the Whitakers and the Chimaevs, they're almost just in a sort of upper echelon compared to these guys. So I think for both of these guys, they've both got a point to prove. Truthfully, I cannot really pick a winner. I don't know. I think they're both closely matched. I like Brendan Allen a lot. I actually think he's improved tenfold in the last few fights. So I'm just going to go with him on merit of his recent performances. Why not?
Yeah, there was a lot to unpack with that.
Yeah, I made that way too hard. I'm sorry.
There's a lot to unpack with that. But for the most part, when I look at this, I think Brendan Allen is good on the feet. But I do think that his skill set is more limited than Nassourdine Imavov in regards to some of the tools, some of the footwork capabilities. I think Brendan Allen just does the basics, and I think he does those to a high level, and I think he mixes in the grappling quite well. And I know Imavov can grapple, but I just think if it's at a pace where he's having to strike, grapple, strike moving backwards, I think Brendan Allen's going to be able to give him trouble. So if Brendan Allen can take the center and start pressuring him from early, I think that'll pay dividends in the later rounds. I do think he may even lose a couple early, Brendan Allen, but I think he'll be able to wear on Nassourdine Imavov. Saying that, his footwork can be very silky and he can be very hard to track down, and he's starting to get some wins now and some momentum. So it's a tough one to call, but I'm swaying to Brendan Allen, to be honest. I'm just swaying to Brendan Allen, and if he got the decision, I would be most unsurprised.
I think the reason I agree with you, because I think the reason that is Imavov's cardio is the big question, isn't it? I think we've seen him falter a lot in later rounds. His striking is good, but he doesn't really hold up as the fight goes on. I think Brennan can really set a pace on him. So yeah, I'm kind of in agreement.
If it was the 5th round and I saw a rear naked choke, I wouldn't be surprised. That's all I'll say.
Actually, that's a good show, actually. But for me, and I'm sure you'll probably agree with this too, the people's main event on the card, William Gomis versus Joanderson Brito, who in my opinion is one of the most slept on guys in the roster. This is what I don't understand. People forget Brito. This guy fought and beat Diego Lopez on Dana White's Contender Series. And might I remind you, who is that Brazilian is now the 3rd ranked featherweight in the world. So that answers the question, is he championship caliber? I think the answer is unequivocally yes. And of course, he just most recently beat Jack Shaw in obviously the stoppage, if you remember, was actually quite strange. Jack Shaw sustained like a sort of serious cut to his leg, and that was a doctor's stoppage. But if you looked at the way that fight was going, and it didn't really look like one-way traffic for the most part. And this is coming from someone who's a big Jack Shaw fan, but Brito was outclassing him, truthfully, on the feet. And you know that's no easy challenge, and he made him look like
that's impressive.
A newcomer, very impressive. And I don't know how many wins that is for him in the UFC now, but for me, I think the sky's the limit for this guy. I think it's going to be pretty clear-cut win. I know William Gomis is a tough challenge, but man, I'm very high on Brito, so I'm going to go with a late stoppage. I'm going to go like a round three TKO. Let's go with that.
If I'm not mistaken, is Matt Frivola not on this card?
He is. I was going to get to that, but for me, I had to mention Brito first. But yes, Fares Ziam versus Matt Frivola, which is that's a good fight. I mean, any Matt Frivola fight's a great fight. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, this is the fight. Matt Frivola and
Ziam. I still don't know how to pronounce it.
And the fun thing about him is not only is he looking incredible, but he left the UFC. He came into the UFC just young. Had a tough time, as anyone would, in a very difficult division. Came back and has just been looking good. Has been looking polished. Has been looking sharp. And Matt Frivola is a tough cookie and a tough man to go in there against. But Ziam's got all the momentum, and Matt Frivola's on a get back because the last time he was associated with France didn't really go his way at all, and he was on the receiving end of a beautiful highlight finish. So there's a lot on this. You've got knockout power, you've got technical striking, you've got potential wrestling exchanges. So this is really my sleeper fight to watch on the UFC Paris card. I'm excited for that one, to be honest.
That's a good shout. Another one, as I've seen this, I had absolutely no idea, but Jermaine Durandamy is fighting. I thought she disappeared off the planet, to be perfectly honest. When's that? Oh wait, no, she fought not that long ago. She fought in April. Well, honestly, maybe I am the casual.
You're dreaming.
To be fair, before that, she hadn't fought for 4 years, so I'm gonna take that one personally. I mean, I guess that's exciting. Chris Duncan as well, the Scotsman, versus Balaji Oki, who I don't know. But Chris Duncan's pretty good. I know he's coming off a knockout loss, if I'm not mistaken, but his Contender Series performance proved that he can win from absolutely nowhere. I don't know if you recall that one, but he was out on his feet, one punch away from getting finished and came back seconds later, knocking the guy out. And of course, has strung some impressive performances, particularly on some of the London cards since then. So I'm excited to see him hopefully get back in the win column.
Yeah, I saw him training in London when I was filming, and he's a powerhouse, man. When he lets punches go, he's heavy-handed, and obviously it's sparring, so he's holding them back. But you can see even those just whistling past people's face with the bigger gloves on. And you can see the knockout power that man has. Yeah. So he's exciting to watch because he legitimately has fight-ending power. Good wrestling, trains with a very good team out in America, top team. I was speaking to him and he was saying about I was saying, who are you training with out there in regards to sort of like the weight class? And obviously you've got Arman Sarukian and you've just got the highest level talent at 155. So yeah, Chris Duncan's always fun to watch. But yeah, we've got some fun fights coming up.
Yeah, is there anything else you wanted to touch on in a quiet week of MMA, generally speaking, which is quite rare, to be honest? And as we always do say, it's quite a refreshing thing. I think change of pace for us, in a sporting realm that is so 200% all of the time and very much in your face. Mate, it's nice to change that.
I actually find that the quieter weeks in the atmosphere are my busier weeks because I go into the backlog of things that I need to do and
interesting.
Realize I got a lot more that I need to be doing, and then it ends up getting busier, or at least that's what I've been trying to use, is just clearing out the hard drives of content.
Steady. Okay, right, of content, good.
Of content.
Be scared there for a minute.
Jesus, the hard drive of content.
Well, you can't start off by saying clearing out the hard drive because you know what that insinuates.
Oh yeah, that's a terrible.
I didn't say it.
Especially in a week like today, and I never get involved in not conspiracy theories, but just any trending news. Anyone that knows me knows that to be true. But I'm not gonna lie, I spent 20 minutes this morning just going through P. Diddy Twitter threads. I couldn't help it. And I'm the last person to go on things like that because I can never be bothered to read those or watch those or care that much of what's going on. But it's so fascinating how many different links there are with all these different people.
We're going to get Dana White coming out of the wood.
I don't truly know what's going on to the level.
You never know.
But I've just seen a lot of craziness. Do you know anything about names?
No, I know. I've heard rumors that he's going to enter a plea deal or something, which essentially means he's going to rat on loads of names. And if that does happen, mate, the waterworks, not the waterworks, the dam's opening. We're flooding. The whole celebrity scene is flooding.
I can't.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine?
I can't see that.
Yeah, no, neither can I, because I think he's probably going to get.
Can that happen? Is that
he's going to get off?
Option?
Yeah, of course, it's an option.
Really?
But it won't happen because he's probably going to get, taken care of, if you will.
There is
before that happens.
No way. There's one of two things happening, right? There's one of two things happening. This is how I see this plan. There's no way that it's just going to come out. We wake up on a Monday and it's going to be like, right, here's a list of all the people that done all of these things. This is what's happened because he's had to expose that. Or B, it comes out and the news moves so quickly that in a few months, you just get about your normal life and you're not that tapped into those worlds. You kind of forget about it and it just goes down in
I think it speaks volumes that we're not tapped into it and we know about it.
This is what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
I'm so out the loop of those things on the algorithms that the fact that I see it and I'm a bit invested in it is how big it is.
Just to follow up on that, as I said, he's been put on conveniently on suicide watch. So if that's not an indicator that he's gonna, they might call it that, but he's gonna get taken care of. I don't know what it is. But imagine if the name comes out and we.
Well, the truth of it
that would be crazy if we get some UFC fighters in there.
There's so many people. There's so many people that have gone to them, and there's so many people that are going to account
Kevin
different
Hart
stories.
Is what I'm saying.
There's so many people that are going to be able to account different stories. You're just going to be able to find out for the most part. It will all come out regardless anyway. There's too many people involved within it, and too many people that are just going to these different places that are having conversations about this. So you can just. You can add the dots up, to be honest, for the most part, and see what's going on. So whether it comes out or not, you'll know who's involved for sure. For sure.
I'm sure we'll find out. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to touch on, because now we're rambling about
choice of words on there. Choice of words.
Oh, come on, no. Yeah.
Choice of words.
Fair point.
Good place to stop.
That is, this has been the MMA Creators podcast. Pretty fitting, as we say, at episode number 69. I'm so sorry for that one. And we'll see you next time. Have a good one.